today we're going to hear from case studies from this, who are featured in this lovely publication, and we're going to hear from WOW project, from Women on Women from Outlandish Theatre Company. We're going to hear from Power project with KCAT from Kilkenny, and we're going to hear from Keychange with the Irish partner First Music Contact, and then we'll hear from two artists who took up the i-Portunus Artist Mobility Award. So we'll hear from them in a moment. But I'm just going to talk about Women on Women, the WOW project, which is a focused project about the representation of women by women in the past and the future. So it has an Irish, as I said, an Irish partner, Outlandish Theatre Company, and then there are 4 other European partners as well. But the project focuses on gender equality through a feminist perspective, and it traces the legacy of women, particularly from a diverse and intersectional perspective. It's a testing for new models of solidarity and knowledge exchange between different communities. So it looks at diverse peoples from social, economic, cultural, ethnic, racial and generational backgrounds. In Dublin, the WOW project is a very grassroots project. It is based in Dublin 8, and so far has offered loads of different opportunities for intersectional and intercommunity art projects. To date, the WOW group has 7 diverse women, and they created a sound performance together around their visibility called Backstage, and they presented it at the Love and Charity project in the Mother Tongues Festival in the Civic Theatre. They also had a WOW award, so Women on Women Awards for fighters of gender equality and social justice. And over 50 women were nominated for this nationwide. And we're going to hear now in a minute from one of the awardees called Mavis Ramazani. And she is part, we're going to play the film Portraits. Mavis is a global citizenship educator. She's a survivor of domestic violence. She is a single mother, and she also works with Amnesty International on their Ireland's Human Rights Education program. So I'm going to just play a bit of her video now, hopefully. Oh, hold on. Sorry, I'm just going to make sure that the...
And introduce on-door accommodation.
Oh, sorry, this is really jumping all over the place.
I am Mavis Ramazani, and I am calling on all of you and the government to do everything in your power to dismantle direct provision and introduce on-door accommodation. Asylum seekers and refugees with diverse migrant experiences need autonomy over their own lives, to overcome their traumas, integrate with communities, and live in dignity. The need for dignity does not diminish the other. People needing safety is no reason to restrict access to protection. We must care about refugees at our doorstep and Europe's doorstep. I urge you to listen to me as a person who lived in direct provision and experienced the inhumane treatment with my daughter. It is important now more than ever to stand with us and fight for justice and equality.
That was a beautiful piece of part of the WOW portraits, and that was Mavis Ramazani. So we're going to hear from KCAT, from Maeve Lambert, about the Power Project. And if I could invite you, Maeve, to turn on your camera and your microphone, and I'll hand it over to you. Thanks a million. You want to share your screen?
I'm not going to share my, do I need to share my screen?
No, you don't have to.
Hi everybody, how's it going? I am artistic coordinator of Equinox Theatre Company here at KCAT Arts Centre. And before I launch into the Power Project, I just thought I'd give you a bit of background about KCAT and why we are interested in working at a European level. So KCAT Arts Centre was founded in 1999 after an initial pilot phase under an EU Horizon programme. So at the time, KCAT aimed to create and engender a new situation, an environment in which artists and students from different backgrounds and abilities could work and create together, and in which lifelong learning could be an opportunity for everyone. But what's evolved over 21 years is a far more dynamic and proactive thing. We've realized that the real work at KCAT lies not in the creativity, but in the fostering and nurturing of creative ambition in our artists, who are people who are often publicly invisible, ignored, and marginalized. So KCAT now plays host to the Visual Arts Studio, which is a supported studio environment, a professional ensemble-based theatre company, Equinox, a dance platform, and countless learning and professional development opportunities through courses and facilitated open studios. Over 100 people, learners, artists, facilitators, and collaborators come through our doors every week. But that initial EU Horizon pilot funding actually began to embed in our development and really became enmeshed in our culture at KCAT to work with European partners. Because we were the first multidisciplinary arts centre of its kind in Ireland, we needed to look internationally for contact, context, exchange, and discourse. Over the years, we've really come to see the value culturally, professionally, and socially for our artists and facilitators to have opportunities to travel, engage, and collaborate and cross-fertilize with international organizations and the people within them. KCAT is an accredited organization to engage with Erasmus+ and as a strategic partner organization at a European level. Despite working on fantastic projects in the realm of visual arts and education, we've never found an opportunity for the theatre ensemble to have this experience until Power. So Power came about because of our engagement with the lead organisation Cooperativa Nazareno based in Carpi in Italy. And for ages, we've been having conversations with them, and with Power, we recognised an opportunity finally for our theatre artists to have this experience. So Cooperativa Nazareno designed the Power Project and brought on board 3 partner organisations, Tema from Athens in Greece, Studio Citadela from Prague in Czech Republic, and KCAT. So the total project was approved and co-financed within the framework of Creative Europe 2018 for €332,315, with a duration of 24 months and starting from September in 2018, from which KCAT received match funding from the Creative Europe desk to the tune of €75,000. And it was due to end on the 31st of August this year. So about the Power Project, in a nutshell, the idea was to create a piece of theatre with 3 internationally based theatre companies and an orchestra, coming from interviews made with refugees emerging out of the migrant crisis we're currently facing in Europe. This is working with artists with a disability or disabled artists, with a target audience of elderly and young people, and all this alongside training and development opportunities for facilitators and assistants working in the field of disability and inclusive theatre. So Power took the form of 3 phases. The first one was gathering of stories from refugees in each country. And obviously each country was experiencing their own challenges in this. And Greece and Italy's experience, refugee experience, is vastly differing from the Czechs and Irish, obviously. So that was really interesting to kind of collaborate in that regard. The next phase was the development of script out of these stories, and also the development of working practices and methodologies. And the final phase took the form of production, touring, audience development, and workshops and training phase. So the resulting production was We All Come From Somewhere, and it's a play by Silvia Ciudin, who's an Italian documentary filmmaker. She wrote this as a response to the interviews with refugees that we had all conducted, and examines the idea that migration has been happening on the planet Earth since the dawn of time. The fact that birds, fish, seeds all migrate, and we take that for granted, but that somehow the idea of people migrating has become challenging for us to understand. After all, we all come from somewhere. So it was premiered in Prague in January this year and was due to be performed in Carpi in northern Italy in May, followed by Visual Arts Centre in Carlo in June and Athens in August. But obviously, because of major complications arising from COVID-19, we had to put the project on ice for a while, and we received a 12-month extension. And this is really due to the vulnerability of our target audience as well as our actors and performers. So the major benefits of a project like this have been having to examine how we work, having to collaborate not just with other artists, but also other organizations. And it forces a kind of self-reflection. Another benefit is around professional development. For example, the fact that we had to engage an audience development consultant. And I don't think we'd have done that if we hadn't been involved in this project. And it's been a really exciting progress for us. Also giving our actors a chance to meet with their peers internationally, which is very difficult in Ireland. There aren't many companies like us. There are some, but not many. And also working with other organizations and getting a chance to either learn from them or the affirmation that you're on a good trajectory already. So that's really interesting. And I'm going to finish up by just showing you a short film, which was filmed in Prague of this.
I am Janice, and I'm from Ireland.
I'm Vasilis from Greece. Vasilis.
Io sono Paolo e vengo da Carpi, Italy.
Check. I'm Joseph. Enrico. Anna.
Panos.
Luigi.
We will start with a little warm-up, and maybe we can step forward to get to know each other.
Brilliant stuff.
Sorry, that was in mid-flow, but it was, oh, it's such a beautiful video. Really great documentation, isn't it?
Yeah, it's fantastic. That was the Greek partners that were that made that. So yeah.
Oh, okay. Brilliant to see, like physically see all the partners come together, and everyone, all the artists rehearsing and everything.
Quite moving to see that many people in one space right now, isn't it?
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, it's kind of tearful.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks a million, Maeve. Thanks for telling us all about power. And we look forward to see what comes in the next 12 months. Obviously, things will change, hopefully. And I'm going to introduce Angela Dorgan, who's from First Music Contact, and she will talk a little bit about Keychange. If you want to turn it, there you are, Angela, thank you. And if you want to share your screen when you're ready.
Here we go. Good morning, everybody. So my name is Angela Dorgan and I'm the CEO of First Music Contact. We are an Arts Council funded resource organisation for musicians and the independent music sector in Ireland. We run a number of key support interventions in the life cycle of a musician, an artist, and the professionals around them. And in this context, we have, I suppose, fed into and now participate in a European project. We haven't had the opportunity to be a lead yet in a European project, but certainly a lot of, in a post-Brexit world, we're getting a lot of approaches. We resource musicians, we see about 18 musicians a week on Zoom now. It used to be about 7 a week in real life, to develop their ambitions in the music industry. We then have an online music portal called breakingtunes.com, which has over 20,000 musicians on it. About 5,000 of those are live and active right now on the island of Ireland. That's a really live and vibrant network in itself. And then we have Ireland Music Week, which used to be called Hard Working Class Heroes, which is a professional showcase of 50 of the most export-ready artists in Ireland every year, as selected by a panel of Irish and international music industry professionals. We then have Music from Ireland, which is the music export office, and we support artists to showcase in 10 different showcasing events around the world. But we also, as Music from Ireland, are the founder members and member of MA, the European Music Exporters Exchange. So with the Ireland Music Week and the Music from Ireland hat on, we're kind of a double partner in Keychange. Keychange was brought about by one of its partners, Reeperbahn Music Festival, which is a lead showcase festival in Germany for the kind of mainland Europe with the German, Austrian and Swiss music industries, but it tended right across the world as well. So Reeperbahn, along with PRS Foundation, which is the foundation associated with the Music Collection Society in the UK, devised Keychange as a response to gender imbalance and gender minority imbalance in the music industry, specifically on stage. That the discovery was that although a lot of women and non-binary and gender minorities were involved in making music, they weren't making it onto the main stage. So they set about, under Vanessa Reed leading the charge, set about making doing something about this and bringing people to task. So they set about making a pledge. The reason why it's important is there's substantial imbalance in the music industry in terms of gender, and this specific project was engaged to address that it's a human issue, not just a female issue, and that it was specifically that it was thought, if you see it, you can be it, so that the first layer of where to engage in this imbalance was in the live music sector. So the Keychange program is in two parts. We are a partner in the second part. There was a pilot funded to test the case. And then there's so that's the program, and there's also the pledge. So the program offers opportunities for selected artists and professionals to develop their skills. And then the pledge itself is for music organizations and events to sign the Keychange pledge to achieve gender balance in the music industry by 2022. Ireland Music Week signed up for this back in 2017. When the pledge was started, and we have, I'm happy to say, achieved hitting on certainly over 40%, and in the last 2 years hitting the 50%. And actually this year we had more female showcasing artists than we had male. And we are now actively, as a partner in Ireland, trying to get other events to sign the pledge as well as partners in Keychange. And we, as part of this program, will be pushing that and trying to get more people signed up in February. So keep an eye out for that link if you're involved in music projects. The program then that we're part of has just gotten an extension because of COVID, because the program itself is very active and depends on people moving. So we did an open call where 222 participants were selected by partners across 12 countries via an open call. So the recipient, it's based on the performers. So 3 performers and 3 professionals are selected out of the open call to get a showcase opportunity, 3 showcase opportunities. The professionals get to speak and engage at conference. The participants meet separately themselves and together for capacity building, and all participants receive mentoring from professionals of their choice and from the wider team. What it achieves is network exposure and career development for the 3 selected performers and the 3 selected professionals within the industry. So for Ireland, we had 3 artists selected and 3 professionals selected. And then when the 13-member festivals met, each of those artists, so we booked 3 artists from 3 different countries to showcase at Ireland Music Week in 2020. And our 3 Irish artists got selected in 3 other countries each to showcase. And the same where we had then programmed professionals to ostensibly come to Ireland Music Week, but they ultimately didn't. So I suppose COVID, like everybody, has interrupted the flow. It was when all the partners met, there were just not enough festivals who were happening in real life to facilitate the project to proceed as normal. So there was a vote taken to just cut and paste into 2021. So although Ireland Music Week only showcases Irish artists, all of the other member showcase events showcase artists from all over Europe. But we had made to be part of Keychange and to engage kind of in the spirit of it. We had committed to bringing the 3 international showcasing. I think there was a Dutch, in Iceland, and French artists that we had selected. So because of COVID, I suppose that was interrupted. But I suppose the first year of assessment and how it works and how it can work practically hasn't been tested yet, but the artists being funded to move across borders and to get to be part of, I suppose, building a new music industry and a new generation of music industry where there's a proactive stance in achieving gender balance. I think has been something that's really engaged the Irish artists and professionals, and it's given them, I suppose, like anything else when they were selected, it's given them a new sense of confidence that they don't usually have access to. The manifesto, I suppose, I've just talked there a little about how COVID interrupted us, but the Keychange, I suppose, manifesto, although starting with this live element and with the infrastructure element, with professionals participating, it's really key, I suppose, when we're talking about people being encouraged to join the manifesto when we push this in February, that the achievements that it starts in live, that we can acknowledge, invest, research and educate those entering the music industry, so that gender balance becomes a natural achievement, and that higher up the food chain in terms of gender balance, that if a showcase event in a country can achieve gender balance, then there's no reason why the larger commercial festivals can't also achieve gender balance, given the talent that's being put on display and put in front of them. And I suppose that's one of the key reasons why Ireland Music Week was really eager to get involved in this, is that it's change from the bottom up. And I think we reviewed ourselves when we interrogated larger commercial festivals about their gender balance, and the excuse or the reasoning was always, oh, they're not out there. We thought this a very practical, I suppose, project and building block initiative to get rid of that excuse. So we're very excited to see how it can build. We're very excited to see the opportunities will give Irish artists, but also very excited to introduce international female and gender minority professionals into, I think it's always great to be partner in a European festival, because you don't know what's missing in your own sector until you hear it from other people and to hear other people's experiences. And I suppose it feeds into then our other European initiatives, where as MA, the European Music Exporters Exchange, we just we're not Ireland aren't a participant, but we just won another scheme to invest more again in the cross borders mentoring, exchange, talent exchange and education exchange across borders within our network of 28 music export offices. And also we're really encouraged and excited to achieve an equality of access to professional development and professional development education right across Europe.
That was such a great insight into Keychange. I know it's a huge project altogether, but it was lovely to hear from an Irish perspective. And last but not least of our presentations today, we're going to hear from Chelsea Canavan and Deirdre Power, artists and facilitators who brought their project from Limerick to Portugal via the i-Portunus Artist Mobility Award, which we'll talk a little bit about after their presentation. So I'll ask you, Chelsea and Deirdre, to pull up your cameras, please. Thank you. Good morning. And if you could share your presentation, I'll let you take it away.
Great. So just make sure I'm on the starting slide. Now, okay, so everyone can see that, yes? Good. So my name's Chelsea, and with me is my collaborative partner in art, Deirdre Power. What? Can you hear me okay?
Morning. Good morning, everybody. How are you doing? Yes.
Okay, cool. So I'm just going to take a brief moment to introduce both of us. Deirdre here, she's a socially engaged artist with a lens-based practice. This is framed by a pedagogical approach to developing a sustained discourse with communities of interest about the basis of community life. Her projects enable positivity around promoting change at a local level by reimagining spaces within their environs, and through her lens-based practice, a sense of place pervades, embodied in social and visual communication. As a photographer and an engagement with memory and the process of narrative translation, Deirdre believes that a photograph assumes an active role in the crafting of both personal and collective accounts of everyday life. And for myself, I'm a multidisciplinary artist, researcher, and part-time educator, and I allow visual outcomes to be determined through a diverse process of artist-led experimentation and group engagement. As an artist and researcher, though, I explore and experiment with ideas around belonging and ecology through parallel relationships of social systems and belonging to place. As an educator, I work to bring out public process-based workshops and gatherings that engage communities and individuals in dialogical approaches to understanding and engaging their own environments by bringing them into a certain process. So Deirdre and I collaborate and have since late 2017, on this project called, it started off being called the Salmon's Wake, but I believe that it is an ever-changing with a new name constantly. This is an ongoing and adaptive project. It's focused on the accelerating speed of societal change in communities with the evolution or obsolescence of local culture and traditions and its effects. Our collective approach is both creative and educational through collaboration, employing creative practice and maritime heritage to connecting to these communities of interest. Building upon an already established project, the Salmon's Wake, which was a creative exchange project that took place in Nook and Limerick. Our objective was for the i-Portunus to extend beyond this local and into a cross-European border through this mobility funding. So what you've seen here is a couple photos of the beginnings of our Limerick project and our engagement with the community. So the Salmon's Wake project developed as an artistic exchange of cultures and ideas with these communities of interest. And as artists, we spent a really long time building connections and links to shared experiences. The boats in these past two images played an intrinsic part to the life and economy of these people before the modernization of the city, and has been a continued part of our engagement and connections with these groups. Building on the connections that we made with these local groups through community engagement, workshops and events, we pursued developing relationships through Nook, Greenland and Limerick City. So literally in the wake of Ireland's only wooden sailing ship, as she made her very first maiden voyage to Greenland, we joined in on this journey and this voyage with our exchange project. The voyage offered an initial organic connection and an emissary of sorts for a creative and cultural exchange around the themes and topics enveloping these coastal communities. Themes of lost tradition, modernization, communication and cultural exchange were just among the few that were brought into light by the project's workshops. Integrating the Creative Europe funding into our project now allowed us to seek connections further afield and through our own initiative and practices. And this is what brought us to Madeira, Portugal. Continuing on from the success of our exchange in Greenland, myself and Deirdre sought to create more connections with different and diverse coastal communities, seeing a need for the sharing of this culture and heritage through creative connections. Initially, we connected through a man named Bruce, an avid boat builder working with community youth groups outside of the educational system. We initially explained to him that we're interested in facilitating cross-cultural networking, strengthening contacts with local and distant European communities, and introducing new communities of interest to each other through commonality of place and creating a network of shared experience and knowledge together. By way of engagement with these communities and participation embedded in the local community, we ended up building a trust with the local fishermen and this maritime culture that existed. That does exist, sorry. This was a similarity with our own community that we had in Limerick, and it allowed for a type of Deirdre and I like to call it a rite of passage, from where we were able to then engage in dialogue around life, work, challenges, and integration. Participating in the occasional daily activity with these groups gave us insight to the subtle differences, and it also ended up bridging a language gap within our dialogical engagement and processes. So these relationships then began to extend beyond just exchanging knowledge and workshopping, and led into more social aspects of integrating into the community life and experiencing every day from work to family life. Here you can see we were introduced to a fella that was chopping fish that had been caught. So we kind of got brought into the fold based on our own past shared experiences with our groups in Limerick. The project continues to maintain a space for discourse towards inclusivity with communities where the recognizable effects and the evolution or obsolescence of local culture and traditions are prevalent. In this picture, I'm building a MDF laser cut model with the local community we started to integrate with. We're building a model of an Irish traditional angling cot. And we're actually building it on top of one of their traditional boats that's used as our kind of creative desk space. So you can we're overlapping and integrating different cultural practices. So as a collective, our shared experiences foster a channel of dialogue with positive outcomes, working towards a broader narrative of creative and ecologically sustainable maritime practices. We build and maintain complex relationships, and we sustain cultural conversation around these coastal communities. There's our finished model, and it has pride of place actually in the local boat club in Funchal, Madeira. So the communities around the project have benefited hugely from the connections, as have myself and Deirdre. They continue to influence the way in which engagement and collaboration happens. And this is due to the learning and exchange that took place while we were on the residency. Working on a European level has brought with it not only a higher standard of our engagement, but it's opened more opportunities for us in a peer-to-peer exchange and professional learning setting. Here's one of the boats that is made by the youth groups outside the education system. And this is actually a replica, or it's an attempted replica towards the more traditional boats that they use. So currently in COVID, the project has refocused upon Ireland upon its return. And however, as restrictions do become easier to deal with and the project reshapes and is ever evolving around what it learns, it's maintaining a focus of linking coastal communities through shared experiences of place and maritime heritage. The project continually finds ways to bring these communities together. The connections we're developing with the UK and Europe and further abroad as other modes of exchange, focusing on the movement of culture and communities through traditional means of transportation, promoting a seaborne dimension to people's lives, and developing individual and community for maintaining and bringing about sustainable cultural conversation around all these commonalities.
Hold on. I'd like just to add something if I can. I suppose the experience was quite extraordinary. Not having a language similar, the community in Funchal spoke Portuguese. I don't speak Portuguese. I don't think Chelsea was speaking Portuguese. But I think there was a trust that developed, little like the community here in Limerick. I mean, I've grown up on the river in Limerick, so there's a kind of rite of passage when you have a particular language that it's not a given, you know, it's something that has been earned over years. And I think there was an understanding between both communities, both in Limerick and in Funchal. Sadly, we were to go this summer on board the island ship, which would have been tremendous, and hold a regatta, bringing the traditional boat from Limerick. Sadly, that didn't happen. But next year, one of the plans is to go to London. And I think what's really going to be the challenge is that there are no borders when it comes to the sea. So by way of the sea, we can break down those barriers, and it'll be kind of interesting to see how that will happen in London. We don't see London as now part of, removed from the dialogue or the discourse, but now the sea will connect us, if that kind of makes sense. So it's going to be a really good challenge, really strong challenge, and hopefully it will work out. So whether Opportunists can support us now that Britain will have left, that will be remain to be seen. So we look forward to another exciting project. Well done, Chelsea. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. That's so interesting to hear of that, how that project came about, and also really exotic looking when I think of traveling to very colourful countries such as Portugal. But well done, thanks a million, that looks great. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about, while we're talking about i-Portunus, the i-Portunus award itself. So yeah, so i-Portunus supports artists and cultural professionals for short-term and flexible international mobility opportunities. So it was a pilot scheme. It started in 2019, and there were 3 calls, and now they're going to do a couple of calls, one with a deadline in February, the 28th of February, 2021, and that call is around music and literary translation. And then there will be another call in 2021 around architecture, and another one around culture and heritage. And in the next programme of Creative Europe, there will be a fixed i-Portunus call. So it'll be a permanent call, which will be great, because it's definitely a very useful call for individual artists. And just to talk a tiny bit, I know Katie touched on it earlier on, the Creative Europe programme, which we will have a call where it looks like around the middle of 2021. They're confirming the details of the programme as we speak. But we do know that the budget is going to increase from 1.46 billion to 2.2 billion. There will be a focus on gender equality, on Green Europe. There will be continued emphasis on social inclusion, on intercultural dialogue. As we said, continued supports for individual artist mobility through the i-Portunus. There'll be targeted sectoral approach, which has happened before with Music Muse Europe. They'll have a similar type of a call in the music sector, and another one for theatre. There is a possibility of higher budget, as Katie mentioned, in the early years in the context of relief for COVID, and a possibility of higher co-funding threshold, which is good news for Irish participants. So we might open it up there to the floor for any chats, anybody, any questions. I wonder if you guys, Deirdre and Angela, Maeve and Katie, wanted to come back on, and we can field any chat that has come through the conversation or through the chat bar, chat function. Just starting there, I just had a question myself, Angela. I'm wondering about, unless I completely missed it in your presentation, but I'm just wondering around Irish musicians, how they can kind of access Keychange or apply to be a selected musician, or, you know, for one of the programs you were talking about.
So it was done via an open call. IMRO, the Collection Society here, are a sponsor alongside PRS Foundation in the UK. So both IMRO and ourselves, when the calls are made, if for future years, it will go out on the FMC newsletter and be available on our website, and we'll do an open call through all social media and newsletters.
Brilliant, great. I don't know, Leona, do we have any other questions coming in? Katie, do you have?
I guess it's just more a comment following on from Angela's mention of an open call. Just because really what we always say, because I know there's probably, especially with i-Portunus, a number of maybe individual artists who, you know, want to pursue an international or European practice, and they want to collaborate, you know, kind of cross-border. And the thing about these cooperation projects, these large-scale projects funded by Creative Europe, only organizations, you know, can apply, but the projects themselves really act as little kind of mini funding hubs for artists. So if this is an area that you want to kind of develop or continue to grow, it's really worthwhile looking, you know, starting with, you know, the Irish projects, but then kind of going broader again and looking at the projects that have been funded and following them, on social media or, in whatever way, and seeing the opportunities that come up there, because I think that's really important to always point out. And then just about the i-Portunus, these 3 calls that are coming up in the next few months, they actually relate to 2020. So they're not part of the new program yet. They're finishing the 2020 year. And so the UK is still eligible under those calls. So if you kind of think if you are kind of partnering at the moment, certainly for Chelsea and Deirdre, you might look at the cultural heritage call and try to get something in through that. So I'm not sure, very much came up through the chat.
No.
But, one thing we always kind of say, and this is probably more to Maeve and Angela, is we always ask, that kind of carrot and the stick. So, people say that these projects are a lot of administration and, kind of bureaucracy, but then obviously the carrot is how much you can do with them. So, if you were both kind of sitting here, would you do it again, I guess, is always what I tend to ask people. And hope for the right answer.
Another one, yeah, for sure. Yeah, like for loads of reasons, and the challenges that come up when you're making these, like, they are super bureaucratic, and you do have to make sure that you have the capacity or can develop the capacity to kind of cope with the scale of it, but also be ready for a really steep learning curve, I think, because one of the things that happened with us was language stuff, and I don't mean like translating language, but actually around kind of kosher language around disability and how we speak about disability in each country culturally was really interesting. And we all had work to do. Loads of things like that I think are, even the challenges, like the opportunities within the challenges are really worth experiencing. So even if it's kind of wrecking your head out the other side, it's like, well, I genuinely got something out of that, so that's been a fascinating journey, really.
Yeah, I would echo that with Maeve. We are committing to keep being a receiving partner and a sending partner. I would love FMC to have the capacity to lead projects. It's very frustrating for us in the bid we just won with the European music exporters that came out of a research project that Ireland were involved in, and that we did some country investigations for European music, developing new international markets for European music. And the frustrating thing, I think, and Maeve, I don't know if you experience this, is you and I don't know if it's an Irish thing, but it takes going abroad to talk about what you take for granted about what we do for our artists, and people are aghast and they're like, oh my God, that's amazing, that's amazing. We always think we can do more. So there's a frustration for me, is that FMC as an organization doesn't have the capacity to be a lead. Because we are now involved in 2 projects that the building blocks came from our initiatives and our ideas, and we can't be we don't have the capacity at the moment to lead out and develop our own ideas. But that's what being part of European projects is all about. Sometimes you come up with all of the great ideas, and others get to benefit from it, and you just have to hope that the circle comes around. But I think it is, by its nature, accessing this funding is cumbersome. But I think I think it's like getting funding for anybody, and funding from the Arts Council or any stakeholders. It's not your money, so you have to account for every single penny of it. So I think that's, sometimes it's not what I love Maeve's project and where you're coming from, and I love our activities and where we're coming from. but none of us is, you know, started arts organizations because we were really good at the minutiae of heavy funding applications. It's never what drives us, but I think it's a means to an end. And I think the benefits of engaging so closely with our European partners, and to see, and I'm interested to see if any of the other projects engage with this. We don't seem to have a sense of being European like other projects and this is something I discovered. I knew about music anyway, but through Keychange, just because of the types of conversations you need to have. A lot more of the professionals and the artists in the music industry feel like European artists, whereas I know that a lot of our participatory and applying artists are Irish artists trying to develop further careers in Europe, and even learning that and passing that on to people, I think has been really valuable. So there's loads of layers why, yeah, we will continue to get involved.
And I really genuinely think that Ireland has quite a large role to play in Europe, especially around Creative Europe projects, because we're the only English-speaking country, and generally in these projects, English is the common language. And I think it's a real moment for us Irish to become European, actually, because I think, like, I don't know about you, Angela, but I found I was really important in the project actually around language. Yeah. So it wasn't just about translating, but actually kind of understanding the poetry sort of what you were trying to say artistically.
And the nuance, yeah.
Absolutely. Like, I found that they couldn't have managed it really without us, actually, as native speakers. And you know, that was intriguing. I think that's a moment for Ireland to grab, you know.
We found that in the other two projects that we helped to design and write up is everybody, we'd all do our work and then everybody would Angela it. And that was the code for, can we get this into actually everyday English?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you're dead right, yeah.
And just we had an event on gender equality last week, and the European Commission, there were 2 policy officers came and presented. And what they were saying is actually the work that's been done here is so far in advance of, you know, many of the countries, you know, within the program. And I think certainly, Maeve, you probably see it within the area of kind of arts and disability or arts and health, that actually we're kind of, you know, we're really up there in terms of the work that's been done here on the ground and then at policy level. And I think now, without the UK even, you know, we're probably even farther ahead. So it is something to think about for sure.
Well, that was something I learned on this project that I didn't know, that we're right up there in terms of innovation of approach and on a kind of socio-political level and thinking. It was lovely, actually.
I just saw a question came in here, probably for all of you and certainly for Angela and Maeve, is what was the procedure on obtaining extensions to the project due to COVID? Was it a relatively straightforward process?
Yeah, for us anyway, now our lead organization, Nazareno Cooperativa, took care of that, but we have our agent, our person in Brussels that is specifically for us. So it's like when you have that direct link, you know, it's literally a call going, what do you think? And obviously we had to do an official application, but it was relatively straightforward because of the understanding that, you know, we couldn't continue as we were doing. Yeah.
The same, the lead partners, Reeperbahn and PRS Foundation, made the approach, but before they did, because we were like underway, as far as I know, actually. So the first part of ours happened in all the artists and professionals met. That's the first photograph on my slide, happened in February. So it had kicked off. So it wasn't delaying the 2020 event. It actually had already happened. And then there were flights had already been booked for the first number of showcases were at an event in late March, and the next were in mid-April. So both of our lead partners, it didn't affect us directly as IMW because we were October, so we didn't have any immediate impact on that, but PRS and Reeperbahn went to the European Commission, but actually the European Commission were very quick to come out to us, partners who had all of them have traveled. So they were very quick to come out and say, we are accepting any decisions you're making with, and gave the procedures. So I think it was, from what I'm aware of, it was quite proactive from the Creative Europe point of view.
I think the thing with the Commission as a rule is they are very understanding. They want to help you, but they can't do it after the fact. So I think, with anything, with these projects and in your dealings, it's just about keeping them informed and, ahead of, kind of things happening or changing. I'm trying to see if there's any other questions. I mean, certainly it seemed what the Commission was trying to do with i-Portunus, and I don't know if you found that, Chelsea and Deirdre, is they were really trying to simplify the application process, and they were trying to simplify things. So hopefully, if you're looking to, was that your experience anyway, as you?
Yeah, I think we did both find the application a lot simpler. Definitely the fact that we had to, I think it was only 4 questions that we had to answer for it. Although I say, the artist in you just tends to sometimes overthink those things as well too. So you do end up kind of being like, how do you fit everything that you'd like to say into 100 words? So I think that's kind of, there's simplifying, and then there may be an oversimplification maybe sometimes as well too, in terms of that. But I do think that they got it right. That i-Portunus application was quite, as far as applications go, it was lovely to do.
But in fairness to our practice, we were pretty much working in that field.
Yeah.
So it was almost, like I said, something that it wasn't just a parachuted in to find a community of interest. So, and I think that's very important as working as artists and being very much embedded in what we're doing. So it provided a platform or an avenue into that area that we could bring what we were already doing in Limerick. And it is very local, but to bring us to a completely different community in a most beautiful space. The one thing that was quite extraordinary as a photographer was that I could, without even finding the space, marry those 2 locations. So we had this beautiful orange saturated. I don't know if you noticed in the first image we showed in the black and white. We have a castle in Limerick, but I showed it in the grey. So there was both spaces were just so similar, because the Corrigower Boat Club, which is positioned right on the Shannon River, the lads live the very same way. Their whole social aspect is about going in, building their boats, going rowing. They're part of the river. The wives, the partners come in later. And it was the very same in Funchal. It was the most extraordinary thing. And here are 2 women artists that are kind of gravitating in between these 2 kind of opposite yet very, very similar cultures. So the sea may divide us, but in many ways it connects us. And that was what made it, if you want to call it, European.
And would you see now from, that project that you'll continue and kind of grow the ways in which you've collaborated and worked together? Because I know that was some of the intention with i-Portunus, that it could start as like a small project that could then eventually grow to something bigger.
I hope so. For me personally, it's absolutely, we have the platform of one of our stakeholders would be the Island Project, and Gary McMahon, and this beautiful wooden boat at our disposal. And Chelsea has just come back from sailing up the East Coast, doing a community project, community and cargo. So we're both working in schools as well with this community cargo project. It goes beyond just, art in schools. It's much broader. So as I said, we're very much part of that. And to sail up the East Coast of Ireland in that weather last week, got my respect.
I'm still cold. But I think that that's something as well that the i-Portunus afforded us, in terms of the fact that Deirdre and I could be there for longer than, say, just a generic week-long residency or something. It gave us that chance to really integrate ourselves, because when you can send as many emails and have as many phone calls as you want with a group and prepare yourselves for meeting each other, but it's not until you share that space together where you really learn your commonalities and you can discuss your, you know, what makes Limerick different and what makes it the same as Funchal, and how. And it wasn't until, I think Deirdre and I were actually sitting there in at the front of the boat club. They have chairs kind of on the pier, and I think one morning Deirdre and I were sitting there and having the coffee while the guys were kind of doing their fishing first fish of the morning, and they were coming in, and I think that's when Deirdre said, that fort, there's a castle here and the boat club there, and that's when we kind of all of a sudden we were like, wow, it's like we're in Limerick but everything's bright yellow. And and sunny. And I think that, you know, if we didn't have the experience that we had in Limerick and then brought it to Funchal, there wouldn't have been that beautiful connection that we had made. So I think affording that building of relationships through time was really important as well too.
Yeah, sounds great. It sounds like you're poised for the next
ready.
application. Well, we might leave it there. I mean, yeah, thanks a million. It's just been brilliant having you all here and hearing your projects and your plans and this beautiful publication. So you'll all get one for Christmas we were talking about, but maybe it won't get there before Christmas. But we have the PDF anyway. Leona sent the link around, so it's on our website to have a look.
Well, we have the Uilinn ship is in Dublin at the moment on a community project, so you're welcome to drop. I wouldn't go down to Limerick, so we'd be very happy with that.
We might go and have a drink on the boat.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Thanks a million for everything.
Thanks for a very interesting project, and May, wonderful project, May, really wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Happy Christmas.
Wow. Happy Christmas.
Happy Christmas.
Take
care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thanks.
Bye.